Hey, I'm Shane from Shane's Law. I'm here today with Thomas for this episode of Mind Matters, Navigating Head Injuries and Concussions. Thomas is one of the brain and concussion attorneys here at Shane's Law. And Thomas, we're talking about what today? Retrograde amnesia?
Yeah, retrograde amnesia. That's a term that's often used in psychology and neurology to describe specific type of memory impairment.
All right, amnesia is what everybody thinks about. You get hit in the head and you forget everything. You know, it makes me think of there was an old movie, Overboard, with Goldie. There's a Goldie Hawn who fell overboard and hit her head and forgot everything for a little while, but she could still do normal stuff, but she had no memories for months. Is that retrograde amnesia, or what are we talking about here?
It's similar. There's different types and different categories of it. Retrograde talks about where someone's unable to recall past memories, experiences, or events. You know, you can have amnesia of a specific event, like if you're involved in a car accident, let's say, massive impact, you know, you might not remember even the beginning of that impact, might be wiped out. Retrograde, I think, refers back to a varying duration of time, from weeks, even years back, depending on the severity.
So you're losing stuff. Now, does it come back or is it gone?
I think it depends on the severity. You know, it potentially could come back because you have neuroplasticity of the brain and, you know, its ability to regenerate itself over time. But in terms of this specific feature, in retrograde amnesia, that's where more recent memories are more difficult to access than older ones.
Okay, so the more, like a week or two before the event. So I can remember all my childhood stuff, but I can't remember the last 6 months or the last 3 months or what I did the day of the accident.
Exactly, and they talk about this in terms of a temporal gradient. Things kind of go along this spectrum. You know, if it's something that's more recent, you may have difficulty recalling it from the last few weeks. But if it's going back, you know, to a birthday party with your parents or, you know, your friends, and, you know, you're probably not going to have as much difficulty with that with this specific.
I would imagine that causes a lot of distress in the individuals who have it, because they know things happen, they just can't remember what it is or even how they got there. Right? This is the thing when people wake up in the hospital and they're like, "How did I even get here?"
Yeah, it's just incredibly alarming. And, you know, we have more than a few clients like that. They wake up and they're surrounded, or they're kind of bolted down to a bed, or they've got IVs running from them, and they're like, "How did I get here? What's going on?
Yeah.
Where is my life gone?" So, you know, that's I think one of the most alarming things about it is that it's a lack of a sense of control that goes on with it.
And how do they calm those folks down?
I guess there's lots of different ways. Having friends and family around, I think, can be one of the best things, because, you know, it's much better to hear it from somebody who's close to you than, you know, a doctor you've never seen before who's just trying to explain to you what's happened to you. And I'm sure there's different types of medications and things like that, you know, but I think definitely being around family and friends is going to be the best way to come, you know, to get it in the best possible way.
To get the best, just sort of acceptance, I guess.
Yeah, bringing yourself back.
My guess is some of them probably go through almost like the grieving period. You know, they continue on the grieving period where finally there's acceptance at the end and not denial and anger. I'm sure there's a ton of that associated with losing large chunks of time.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, I feel like sometimes when I sit around and I think that would be one of my worst nightmares, is not being able to remember, you know, my daughter's birthday party a couple weeks ago, or not being. And I know you're a father too. Just not being able to remember those core memories or those things that are just incredibly special to you. I just feel, you know, that's a loss that you can't ever quantify in terms of a dollar value.
Yeah, because what is that worth, right?
Yeah.
Or what if it was an event and that person's no longer with us,
Right.
or somebody who was happily married and then ended up getting divorced, but all their happy memories are gone, or some of them are gone anyway.
Yeah, or you have something taken away from you that just forms a key part of your relationship with a person.
Yeah. That sounds bad. I mean, it sounds terrible. What else would you tell us about retrograde amnesia?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is maybe the silver lining of it, we don't know yet that it steals away from you something in terms of your procedural memory, you know, your ability to do certain tasks and skills that you learned before the onset of the amnesia. And even if somebody doesn't, you know, maybe they forgot, hey, I forgot how jump shot, or, you know, hitting a baseball. I forgot how I learned to do that, but I still know how to do it. The muscle memory is there.
But you just don't remember, like you say, how you learned it.
Right.
So this is sort of the thing where people start to do something, they're like, holy cow, I can do this.
Right. Yeah, it just kind of, you don't you don't know how you got there, but you know that you can still do it. And I guess that's one of the good things about it.
Okay, because a different part of the brain remembers that part, basically.
Right.
How often does this happen in car wreck cases?
Yeah, it's. I think it's hard to put a number on it, and I think the big reason for that is because we're really at the infancy of learning about TBI in the context of anything. The diagnostic tools that we have today are light years beyond what they were 3 or 4 years ago, and we're coming out with more and more ways of detecting what's going on. In terms of our clients, we see it pretty frequently in terms of, forgetting things or having memory concentration problems, just certain memories or people's names is a big thing. I mean, it also comes up in the context of neurodegenerative diseases, like you might think about Alzheimer's or another, some disease like that. This, TBI can help not help, but TBI can contribute to making those things worse or bringing them about when they weren't ever really going to come about, maybe an early trigger for those.
So you didn't have it, and then boom, you're in the car wreck, you get a TBI, and now suddenly you go from limited retrograde amnesia now into full-blown Alzheimer's, or at least that slippery slope and dementia.
Yeah, could bring about or trigger that happening before it was ever going to happen, or much earlier than what it was going to happen.
Well, and this is a question along those same lines. The elasticity of the brain, is that impacted a lot by your age and how old you are?
I think we're still learning that. I think definitely a younger brain, healthier body can definitely, bring about the ability to rehab from a brain injury. But I think that's still one of those things that we're learning a lot about. But it would be hard to imagine that somebody younger wouldn't be able to rebound from something like this versus 30-year-old versus a 75-year-old.
Yeah. Okay. And I just think in an older person, you steal those memories. Sometimes that's all they have left.
Right. Yeah. It's those precious memories or memories of things with your family. That's I know even for me now, that's something that I treasure, and I just can't imagine what it'd be like to be older and almost in the twilight of your life, you might say, and not having those treasures to hold on to.
Yeah. So what else are they talking to us about retrograde amnesia about?
So retrograde amnesia, individuals with that, they might struggle with remembering what's happened in the past, but they can still function in their daily lives. So it might look for them like they're just going on, nothing has happened in terms of not having a real impact on their lives if they're involved in a significant car accident that causes TBI. But, this can definitely affect things that they've had in the past. It can affect, memories, can affect, again, these treasured moments that we talked about.
Well, let me ask you this. If you have retrograde amnesia, is it normally like, okay, I lost this time period here, but now that I'm here and I'm awake, all the new stuff is building on, or do I continue to lose time, basically?
Well, that gets into a different category, which is what we call retrograde amnesia. That can be something that can happen in a collision as well, or through traumatic brain injury, and that's where a more debilitating disorder, because that impairs your ability to learn new information, and that's obviously essential for day-to-day activities. So you could have one or the other, you could have both.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything, having one limits your having the other being caused by TBI.
Okay, so you could be unlucky and have both. But retrograde is a specific type just for some time you lost in the past.
Yes.
But it's not going to continue to impact you. That's something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might have that as well. They might go along with each other, but that's definitely its own specific category. And then you have anterograde, which is looking forward.
So we talked a little about car wrecks. What causes retrograde amnesia?
Yeah, I think it can be, as we talked about, a number of different things, genetics, different neurodegenerative disorders, but traumatic brain injury can. So any significant impact in terms of direct blow to your head, or those acceleration, deceleration forces that, basically cause your brain to smash against the hardest thing in your body, the inside of your skull.
So car wrecks definitely can cause it. That's where we see it the most in our in our cases. But it makes me think about it like sports, the football. Does it happen in football, or I know boxers a lot of times have issues. I watch UFC, and I've seen multiple of those people talk about when they get knocked out, they'll wake up and they lose the whole fight.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here, retrograde amnesia, right?
Right.
They've got it. It's just confined to a very short window when they're talking about not remembering the fight at all.
Exactly, and sometimes, like you hear with football players, I don't remember, from the second quarter on. I just took that big hit, went down, and woke up in the hospital and just completely wiped out.
So for our purposes, that would be pretty limited retrograde amnesia, short impact. But I guess that would also be then, those people who, they've been in a car wreck, they're sitting on the curb, which happens sometimes. They get out of the car, and then when the EMT gets there, they're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "I don't know." They just don't remember anything. They don't remember passing out. They don't remember getting out of the car. They just find them on the side of the road, right?
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that can happen too is, I've had clients where I've talked to them a couple of days after a car accident, and they remember, somewhat what happened, but as we get farther away and we talk about it some more, it's like that memory has kind of been faded or
so it
wiped.
Degrades and it's gone.
Yeah, because when you have that concussion that, disrupts the function of your brain and disrupts how signals are being sent, different, hormones, responses throughout your body, that can take some time to unfold in terms of how, things are kind of going to degenerate in terms of your system.
So, I've always heard, back injuries get worse over the first 3 to 5 days, right? If you feel it the first day, it's going to be terrible by day 3. Which is one reason why we say if you are in a lot of pain, go right to the ER because it's going to get worse. So these are the same way. They get worse over a shorter time period afterwards. I guess the head injury stuff just comes to light, basically. Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, I think one of the important ways to think about it and conceptualize it is it's not an event, right? It's not, I got in a car accident, boom, I had a traumatic brain injury. It's an ongoing disease process. It's something that unfolds over time and can still be unfolding, years after the fact.
Really?
And it might even be the lesser traumatic brain injury, a mild traumatic brain injury, not one where you're getting your skull stoved in, but one where you've, got some pretty bad headaches for a couple weeks after. That can be the one that lingers with somebody longest. And why? We don't really know, but the brain's kind of like the ocean. We're just kind of scraping the surface,
figuring stuff out as we go. I know, it's been exciting for me to see the evolution of this over my career. Because when I first took it, brain injuries, we didn't have any of this science stuff. There were no DTIs. There was no blood tests to show it. It was really just almost all visual, or the old MRIs that really are not great at showing brain injuries. They show blood, but not an injury to the brain. That was really about all we had.
Right.
And now, in the last 5 years, it's accelerated. We have so much more medical information and knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's a field that's exploding, and when we're talking to the doctors and the scientists that are involved with this, they're just incredibly excited, which makes me excited because they're saying, hey, we're just in the infancy of this. Yeah. They're working with the Department of Defense, they're working with different federal agencies to figure out how we can bring this to the public and kind of expand what we know about how traumatic brain injuries are affecting people, and that can do tremendous things for our clients, which I'm really excited about.
I was going to say, a lot of the work we have to do on a case is, once we get the diagnosis of the brain injury, then it's how does it impact that client, right?
Right.
And what are some ways we dig into that, or people, even somebody watching it could dig into a little bit and be able to explain it to their family members?
Yeah, I think some of the tools that we can use with that, it's a video nystagmus test, which is going in and evaluating balance and posture test in terms of how your eye will respond to a stimuli, and what that tells us about what's going on inside your inner ear and inside your brain, and the areas of your brain that are responsible for the balance and the movement of your eye. So that's something that can give us evidence, can tell you, look, if you're going to be at elevated fall risk over time, if you're going to have cognitive issues. There's also diffusion tensor imaging, which lights up your brain like a Christmas tree in terms of the way that you can look at it and see, hey, that bulb isn't working there. Maybe this particular chain of white and gray matter is what it has been affected here in this accident.
What you lost. Okay.
And then blood tests. That's kind of the new frontier. Is blood tests can tell you what part of your brain or how your brain has been injured.
And that's something we're going to get into in another episode, because that sounds crazy, cool, exciting, and one part of it is like, I don't see even how they can do that. The other part of it is like, well, of course they can see changes and everything. So we're going to dig into that on another episode of Mind Matters. So if that's something interested in, watch out for that episode as me and Thomas dig into that. So how do they explain the amnesia to their friend and family members? Is it just like, hey, I don't remember that? Or is there anything else they can sort of help with that? Because to be quite honest, I know we've run into clients and family members where when somebody's suffered a head injury, they're like, I just don't remember anything. After a little while, people are like, yeah, come on, really? What? Why can't you remember? What? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think, another way of thinking about it is, it's not just them explaining it to their friends and family members. A lot of times they're alerted to it by their friends and family members. Like, it's like, hey, bro, we just did this the other day. You don't remember? Like
So it's the opposite of what I was talking about. The friends and family members notice it, and the person themselves does not.
Yeah, and that's why, having a community, friends and family around you in these cases, that's some of the most, valuable. It's the most valuable network you can have to really help you find out what's going on, get you to the doctors that you need to go to, and then help you get back to yourself. There's different therapies, different neurorehabilitation therapies that are out there, cognitive behavioral therapies that are recommended, and then some other really kind of neat stuff that I'm sure we could talk about on a different one, because I don't know about it now. But yeah.
What I would, what I take from that is, it's so important to listen to those people, your friends and family, when they raise one of those issues, and tell your doctors or tell your lawyer, so we can dig into it and, like you say, try to get you the right doctor, the right specialist to figure it out, because you may not know yourself, and if you minimize that and it's nothing, you're not going to get the treatment you need for certain, and obviously you're not going to get that part of a case, but more importantly, you're not going to get the treatment you need, so it's going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, I think, being able to talk with your lawyer about it and have them get you connected to somebody, because if you look at it in a way, we're kind of like, almost like a general contractor. We have a pretty broad base of knowledge and information, and we work with a lot of doctors over, years and years. And, we know, we know what types of doctors that we can send people to. And a lot of times, if you're just a regular person going to the hospital, going to your doctor, you just feel like you're not heard, like you're not listened to. And I think that's really one of the most valuable things that an attorney can do. It's like, hey, we know we're trying to help you. We're not burdened by the constraints of having, 9,000 people in the waiting room and, having to worry about billing and all the Medicaid, Medicare, and all those things that are going on. Is we can listen to you and we can help you with information that you might never have and you might never be given by, your set of doctors or your insurance company.
All right. Well, Thomas, I think we've learned a lot. We've talked about a lot today. For all our listeners, if you're interested in Mind Matters or injuries and concussions, hit like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And also remember, if you're in pain, call Shane, 980-999-9999. If you've had a brain injury or concussion in your car accident case and have questions and concerns, feel free to call our office and ask for Thomas or the brain injury group.
In pain, so I call Shane, 980-999-9999. In pain, call Shane.